Hello, everyone. I'm Jaden. This is Miles, and we both run the fan account for Mrs Doubtfire the musical, where we bring you the latest updates from the show. Now, today is a real privilege to be able to do our first interview on a fan account, where today we are joined by a person with many talents, let's just say, and probably one of the nicest people we have ever met. It's Rhys Owen.
Hello, dears.
Now, Rhys, thank you for joining us and taking the time to do this interview. But firstly, for those who may not already know, would you maybe like to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a bit more about your role in the show?
Yes, my name is Rhys Owen, and since April last year, I have been the standby alternate Daniel, Mrs Doubtfire in Mrs Doubtfire the musical at the Shaftesbury Theatre.
Hey.
Yes. So, about what being a standby, it must be like you're backstage quite a lot of the time, and obviously with those moments, do you have to rehearse or what do you do behind the scenes? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, understood. So at the beginning of the rehearsal process, me and all the new members of the cast that weren't in Manchester, we had a 2 week boot camp where we all had 2 weeks before the Manchester cast came in to learn the show. So I think it must have been on the last Saturday of those 2 weeks. We ran the whole show. And we had Carla, who plays Lydia, Sam, who plays Stuart, come in, and people sort of played all the parts that they're covering or swinging or whatever. And we did the full show on the Saturday, and then the Monday, everyone else came in, and we sat back and we took in the amazing cast from Manchester, whilst also trying to retain everything we'd learned in the 2 week boot camp. And then, yeah, when I'm not on, I only have to be Mrs. Doubtfire when I'm on, or Daniel. So it's quite lucky in that regard because everybody else, all the covers and swings, they have to learn a whole multitude of tracks, be it the principal roles or the ensemble tracks. Whereas I go on and I'm just Mrs. Doubtfire. So yeah, in the times before I went on, I finally went on at the end of August. I'd have days where I'd have the show on the tannoy in my dressing room, and I'd run through everything. We obviously do cover runs throughout the whole sort of post tech process, where everyone goes on and plays their parts for a whole show. So the whole set is on there, all the lighting, all the sound, the microphones, costume. We do about three, four, five of them sometimes, and everyone alternates who they're playing. And then we also, obviously, with this show, have many, many quick change rehearsals, a few rewrites with certain bits, because everyone does certain bits differently. So yeah, there can be a lot of nice downtime. You know, Netflix, Amazon Prime. There are other streaming channels
Yeah.
out there, um, and we do workouts, we do quizzes, we watch stuff. I've started learning the piano because obviously now we're a sort of year into it. Even though it's always good to keep your mind fresh with stuff, there are days where you're just like, oh, I'm just going to switch off for a bit. So it's nice to have new skills that you can learn. I'm writing a lot. So yeah, it's just nice to stay busy in the times that you're not on. Because we turn up at 6 o'clock for warm up, and when we're not on, we're the whole show's going on underneath us, and we're upstairs in our little dressing rooms. Sometimes we pop down and say hello to people. Sometimes I have to go on as the Mrs. Doubtfire double in La Rosa if people are off. I'm saying I'm a lot. Oh, just said it again. I was about to say it again. So yeah, it's always good to keep busy. So if anybody out there is looking to be a standby or alternate, or is a standby or alternate, get a good book. Make sure you're fully subscribed to all the streaming platforms, and get some nice hobbies, and be ready to work hard at a moment's notice.
Yeah. It must be. So you hear when you're backstage. Do you hear the show, the audience? Do you?
Yeah, so in everyone's dressing room and all around the whole building, there are tannoys and speakers, so we can hear the whole show. So yeah, you can always hear what's going on stage. You can always hear the audience's reactions, and where our dressing room is, you can normally hear whether the tannoy's on or not. People singing backstage down by the stage door. Yeah, you always have to really hear what's going on just in case something happens on stage and you have to run down and take over something, whether it's me or one of the swings with an injury or an illness or
Mm.
anything.
Yeah, thanks, Rhys, for that answer. That was really good. So, I've got a question for you here. So, obviously, Mrs. Doubtfire is a very iconic role, as we all know, and you must be very privileged to get to do it. Obviously, whenever you get to go on. So, in terms of performing aspects, where did you sort of start out, and how was like your journey to get to this role?
Lovely, great question. I started acting when I was, God, probably about 4 or 5. I played the lead role in The Good Samaritan at my infant school. And then I played rugby for a bit on Sundays. And every Sunday I'd be sort of screaming, being like, I don't want to go to rugby. I don't want to go to rugby. But Saturday mornings, I'd be doing my drama classes in Woking in Surrey. And I'd be at the front door being like, come on, let's go now, go, go. And sort of in my sort of just before my pre-teens, I was like, oh, hold on. I think this is what I want to be doing more than rugby. So I started doing my school productions at school. I played Bugsy Malone in Bugsy Malone. I was Sonny in Grease. And then I started joining this youth theatre, the Woking Youth Theatre, and started to get cast in their musicals. So I was in West Side Story. Then, what else did I do? Oh, I did Javert in Les Mis. I did Alfie Doolittle in My Fair Lady. And then did Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady at school. And then went to a couple of auditions for some drama schools and didn't get in, and then found this amazing drama school that I ended up going to called the Rep College in Reading, which was a 1 year course where we did 16 shows in 1 year, one every 3 weeks, from Shakespeare to Greek tragedy to farce. And then we had a professional show, paid professional show. We got our equity card at the end of the course. And then since then, touch wood, I've been fairly lucky where I've mainly always been in work, be it working in a holiday park, doing panto, working on a cruise ship, doing lots of immersive shows. I worked at the Crystal Maze for a bit and directed it in Manchester, did a lot of work with Secret Cinema. I then gave up acting for a year and sold blenders around the country. And then I guess my first sort of leap back into acting, which is where things started to get a little trajectory, was I was selling these blenders and getting really good money for these blenders. But then an audition for Our House came through at the Union Theatre. And I was like, do I want to keep earning a lot of money selling blenders or go and do Our House at the Union Theatre? And I did Our House at the Union Theatre. And then from then I started to mix with loads of lovely people and met all the right people and networked a lot and started working in London a lot more. And then, yeah, since then, it's been a nice upwards trajectory to being where I am now, which is literally a dream. I remember seeing Hook when I was 5 years old with my dad in the cinema. And I turned to my dad at the end and said, I want to do whatever that man does, pointing at Robin Williams. And then flash forward, maths, 20, 20 years or so. Maths is not my strong point. I'm playing one of Robin Williams's most iconic roles every so often.
Yeah, and obviously,
Amazing.
yeah, and you talked like a bit like about inspirations, like performances you've seen, you've been to, but is there anything that really like stood out to you as inspirations that not only for like for this performance, but just in general, you know?
Well, I mean, obviously, seeing Robin Williams in anything when I was a kid, even as an adult, is that's inspiration enough. Even like his silly films, like his voice in Aladdin, Mrs Doubtfire, Jumanji, Good Will Hunting, Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, like he is the reason why I am an actor, because at 5 years old, that is clearly what I decided I wanted to do. But then I guess just seeing people on stage, I remember seeing Joseph with my grandma at the Palladium when I was a kid, and just being completely bowled over by it. Seeing My Fair Lady at Drury Lane, producers at Drury Lane with Lee Evans, just sort of looking at these people and not realizing how much more to this industry that there is. Like, you go and see a show at that age and you're like, oh, Lee Evans is great, but you're not looking at the ensemble, or you're not taking in, how hard it must have been to have written the score and the automation to bring all the set on and the cast and crew and the costume changes. So then the more you watch theatre as you grow up and you're part of it, you just start to appreciate not just the people that you've gone to see a show for necessarily, but everything about a theatrical production on
Absolutely, yeah.
stage and off. And I think that's what keeps everyone humble at this point. I think in our careers, when you're this sort of age, late 30s, you're just so much more appreciative of everything that happens, rather than just being like, oh cool, I've got a cool job. Especially again this show, I say it all the time, like, it is an army of people that make this show happen every night. And yeah, it's I wish there was a documentary made for this musical, because there's a whole other show that happens backstage, unlike anything you'd probably ever see anywhere, not even on the West End, but in the whole world. That might be a bit dramatic, but it feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. That if there was to make a documentary about Doubtfire, obviously for me and Jaden, we'd love that because, like,
Yeah,
obviously we're always wanting more Doubtfire content, really. So yeah.
yeah. Could call it Mrs Doubtfire.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't good. If you do any editing, edit that bit out. That was a very bad joke.
No, it's good. It's like, chill. So obviously, in regards to when you went on as Doubt for the first time, it was a long time before you did go on, because Gabriel, like, as we know, he's a bit of a trooper when it comes to being on, sort of like, and so when, as you said, obviously you had cover runs and things before you got to go on, but obviously you found out you were going on a week earlier, I think, wasn't it, that you
Hmm.
thought you were going to do? So my main question is what was it like when you found out you would be going on for the part that day?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like you said, I was like, right, I've got a whole other week to get ready and prepare myself for my first full week on as Mrs D. And then, yeah, the Tuesday, yeah, exactly a week before, I went on with 20 minutes before the show. So found out at 2:10, and the show started at 2:30. Luckily, the show doesn't start as Mrs Doubtfire, because that probably would have taken a little bit longer to get ready. But yeah, the boys do an impression of me, because I just very calmly, our resident director poked her head around the door at 2:10 and went, Rhys, you're on. And I just sort of gravitated towards her very slowly, did a very slow walk, very calm. Just went, right, what do I need to do? She's like, go and do your makeup. I was like, okay. And I just very calmly went upstairs, did my makeup. They bought, was that to that day? Yeah, I think they brought my costume down into the boys' dressing room, our boys' dressing room, and I just got changed in there. Um, and yeah, I mean, luckily, I think I was ready. I just remember the end of the overture finishing and just seeing the curtain going up and just being like, okay, there's no going back now. And yeah, we got to the end. It was very emotional. Got lovely comments and feedback from all the right people. And yeah, since then, I hope I've got better. Maybe I've stayed the same. Maybe I've got worse. Who knows? But yeah, it was an amazing feeling. And then from that point on, I was on for quite a bit throughout the end of the year, which was lovely. Because like we were saying about being an alternate, you're not, the majority of your contract, you aren't on. So when I do go on, I really appreciate it and really give it 100% every time, because everyone works so hard, again, on and off stage. And just because I don't go on every night doesn't mean that I shouldn't give it 100% because everyone else does. So I always ensure that I give the best show that I can, whether it's with 20 minutes notice or I've had a whole day to get myself in the mindset.
Yeah, and honestly, it must have probably been when like you said, the curtain lifted up. It must have been so surreal in that aspect of being like, I'm actually doing this, like, and obviously with the pre-show announcement, obviously before the show, the overture, did that have to be done live, or was that thankfully already done? If that makes sense.
Yes. So we've all had ours pre-recorded. So Gabe's, mine, and our two covers, Matt and Josh. We all spent a little morning, I think it was, or maybe an afternoon, just in a little room in the theatre, and we just recorded it. Like, that wasn't very good. Let's do it again. Well, that could be stronger. Let's do it again. And then yeah, so that's obviously played pre-recorded every show. So far, the sound team haven't confused who's on, so it's a different voice. Yeah, that's actually never happened before. That'd be quite funny if one day Gabe was on and they played my voice,
Yeah.
or I was on and they played Gabe's
That would be
voice.
funny.
But yeah, that's pre-recorded. Yeah.
Mm. And overall, it would have been probably an incredible experience and a moment for you, and it probably is still quite nerve-wracking to do, like, to this day, because of the amount of quick changes, scene changes, and impressions, and like you are on for most of the show, and but in terms of like getting to Doubtfire and like learning the script, was there any really thing like significantly difficult or challenging that was like hard to learn for this?
Yes. 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 Um, I remember seeing a bootleg version of Doubtfire on Broadway, um, and remembered looking at the Easy Peasy tap routine. And even before I'd even known they were bringing it over here, I remember watching it and being like, "Oh well, I can't tap, so that's that out." And then I obviously saw the loop machine. I was like, "Well, I'm very dyspraxic. That looks like hell for my brain. I would never be able to learn that." So then when I ended up getting the role, I remember being like, right, you're going to really struggle with Easy Peasy and you're going to really struggle with that loop machine. And Lisa, who is our associate choreographer, and Paolo, our dance captain, and Michael John Slinger, who was the assistant choreographer from Broadway, they were very, very patient with me at the beginning because Easy Peasy took me a really long time to get, because I am not a tapper. And some bits of the shape of things to come, the rap and the break dancing, that wasn't looking good for a long time in boot camp. But then, everyone makes mistakes. It's not been perfect every time, but those two bits, the loop machine and the tap, were the two bits that I thought I would like always mess up and would never really look great, and I'd have to like blag it or adapt it a little bit. But so far, every so often I get little notes on certain things, but those two are generally two things now that I don't really stress about. It's the pie in the face. That is my moment now where I'm like, please cover my face, please cover my face, please cover my face. Um, yeah, that's probably my most stressful bit now, is the pie, and some of the quick changes as well. Some of those, trying to learn those were, I mean, the rocking now one at the end of Act One, that is,
Yeah.
even still now, terrifying. You take 1 second too long putting the wig on or the mask on or a shoe on, and you are just chasing, trying to get to the Hoover in time. But again, touch wood, that's not ever been astronomically bad. That's the thing, because there's so many lovely scenes where Doubtfire or Daniel has with other people. There's also an equal amount of scenes where it is just you doing stuff on your own. And a couple of the mistakes I have made, I've been like, oh, I know that's wrong, but no one out there will know it's wrong. So yeah, it's just knowing at the beginning of a show to not give yourself a hard time, which at the beginning I sometimes used to. I used to be in the booth before the curtain came up, and I would just think like, God, the loop machine could go wrong today. Easy peasy could go wrong today. You could not do the right move and shape. And then all of a sudden you're just like, it's fine. There's a whole team of people around you if things do go drastically wrong, to help you get right. And we're very, very lucky with the team that we have on and off stage with Doubtfire. If things do go a little bit awry, whether it's a set thing or a costume thing, or everyone is always fully focused in the show. So if something does look different or go differently, it's very quickly picked up on.
Yeah, and obviously that it must be so, especially with the pie scene. Like all the times that I've seen it, it just covers your face, and I'm like,
Well, that's good.
how do you see? Like,
It's like a balancing act. It's like a tightrope, that bit, because you want it to cover your face because it's such an iconic moment, and you don't want Wanda to be like, that's a bloke, that's Daniel. But also, you don't want to cover it too much because the mic is in your wig. So if you go in too hard, it might cover the wig and drown out the mic. So it's a fine balancing act of not drowning the mic and covering your face. So I'm very pleased to hear that all the times you've seen it, it's covered your face, covered my face. But there definitely have been times where I've either drowned the mic or not covered my face. But I think Gabe sometimes looks in the kettle to check, whereas I sometimes get a look from Kelly and or Marcus. If it's not quite enough, they'll give me like a little look. Kelly sometimes gives me a look as well when I've come out after coming. Oh, I see you've met my brother. After I pretended to come out of the shower, if I've not quite got the lipstick off my lips, Kelly will just go like that to let me know that I need to do a bit more with my lips. But I think with this show, like you have to suspend a lot of disbelief sometimes. Just like, hey, it's live theatre. These things are very intricate and very difficult to get right. If we can get them right 99.9% of the time, the 0.1% where it's not right, give us a break.
Great stuff, yeah. So the audience are really up for obviously seeing all of these like iconic moments that they want to see, obviously. And I remember times where I've been at the show where someone's sort of been like, "Oh, they haven't done this bit yet," and sort of obviously the more times I've seen it, I've been like, "That I know that bit's coming up," and like I always find, regardless what show it is, it's based off a film. When I've seen it and I then go and see it again, I just love to like see other people's reactions when those bits happen. So regarding the loop machine again, like many people have asked, is it live? So could you clarify that it is live?
It is live. It's crazy, but it is live. That bit isn't pre-recorded. It is whoever is on, whether it's me, Gabe, if Josh goes on, if Matt goes on, it will always be 100% live. It is our fingers hitting the buttons at the exact right times. It's our hands fixing the sliders. And it's it's not ventriloquism, you can see our mouth moves, but it's us doing all the mousy and ratty. And again, for me, it's only shut down once. The loop machine, the first set of it was working, and then I got to the second part, and the whole right hand side just wasn't working. That's again another terror. If you sort of go in, you're like, right. It's like when you say don't work with children or animals. Like every so often, you're like, don't work with a loop machine because at some point something's going to go wrong. But touch wood, I'm not sure it's happened a lot, and I think it's only happened once with me where it broke. But yeah, it's live. It's fully live. It might look unbelievable, and that is good that it does look unbelievable. But it is live every night.
yeah, and I mean the reaction like the audience get after the end of Act One, because I'm Rocking Now is such an iconic number and is such like I think everyone's on at that time, like all the ensemble.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at some point everyone's on. Yeah.
and like in terms of scenes, do you have a favourite?
In terms of scenes, do I have a favourite? I love the scene just before playing with fire, where it's Daniel talking to Lydia and apologising to Laura, to Miranda, played by Laura. I just think that's such a beautifully written scene, and it shows Daniel's vulnerability. He's obviously just heard Miranda sing "Let Go" and get all those feelings out, and he's genuinely really sorry. And hearing his daughter Lydia be like, you know, you get to see your kids, we don't get to see our dad, we just get a character. I think that's such a beautiful line, and just shows this little family through all the stuff that has been bad that they've been going through. They're still talking, they're still navigating through everything. And, you know, Daniel essentially is doing something completely mad and he's getting away with it. And then all of a sudden, he realizes his flaws in the marriage and he just flat out apologizes to Miranda. But then she turns around and is like, no, we're not getting rid of Mrs. Doubtfire. And that's when he loses his mind. And that's when playing with fire comes in. Yeah, I love that scene. And then I guess my favorite thing to do is the final monologue. Like, I've remembered watching that film over and over again and just thinking that is one of the most beautifully written monologues, and it's been wonderfully updated to the world we live in now in 2024. And just to have that as a button at the end of the show, you can almost nearly every show whilst I'm doing it, and when I've watched Gabe do it, you can hear little pockets of people like you can hear people crying because, you know, not everyone has been in a family where the parents have stayed together. Not everyone has their parents as a mother and father. Like, it's such a relatable show in so many ways. And that, yeah, that to me will always be very special to say those words. And that last little, "you're going to be all right," is just, it's just lovely. And then you get Mousy and Ratty to come up right afterwards.
And obviously, yeah, that end monologue, it's such an iconic scene from the movie as well. But I remember doing it because we had to do like a drama monologue for our first assessment, and I remember actually doing it on stage as well, and I could actually see as well like the reactions that was getting from people, and it's just incredible how just like a 1 or 2 minute monologue can really hit people. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it really is. In the film, it's cinematic gold, and in the show, it's just theatrical magic. You know, again, seeing backstage, you know, you've just done the just us. Like, soon as Daniel says goodbye to Miranda, you're running backstage, you're doing this mad quick change back into Mrs. Doubtfire, and you have to just I sit down on the chair, I sit on Mousy and Ratty, knowing that they're there, make sure my earrings are on, the teeth are in, the wig's fine. You just sit and you're just suddenly like, take a deep breath, because you know you're about to do a really beautiful monologue. I remember one of the first times I did one of my cover runs, one of my notes from the resident director was try not to breathe so loudly when you're sitting back in the chair, because it was also still new to me and so like, you know, so quick. She apparently could hear me as I was coming on the platform, being like, "Katie rates." So I've managed to get my body acclimatized to that quick change, so I'm not panting like I've run a marathon anymore.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Rhys. Like, and I always find as well, my favourite sort of part of the show. I mean, I do like obviously most of the show because, like, you know,
Oh,
it's been a
good.
big.
That's a good sign. Thanks. I
You'd
like
hope
most
so,
of
wouldn't
it.
you, if we're doing this? So it's like I find, especially though, it sounds naff to say that you like the ending, but the ending of like this show and the film are just like they're both just this very touching ending, and I just love that whole bit of like, you know, when Daniel gets the custody of his kids back, and then the two parts of As Long as There Is Love. I just think they're just lovely moments of like musical theatre writing, and I think that like I always think it's a show that really finishes on that just lovely message and that high sort of energy. And like every time I see it, I just come out buzzing. It's just like it gives a really great energy, and I think you can see that from the audience, and I just love to see everyone like just buzzing afterwards because it is a really just great feel good show.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You do. You have all that heart at the end, and then as soon as Christopher says "Let's party," you've got the last sort of 20 seconds to just dance around like a fool and wave goodbye to everyone and thank them for coming, and then we all give each other a little hug and we all head off on our merry way.
Yeah, great stuff. So, linking back to the reactions from the audience, so many emotions obviously are played out throughout this show, and that's the beauty of it. So now, as due to the show being so complex and being a very fast pace, there are things that won't always be correct, and one thing that always interests people are bloopers and mishaps. So, in terms of the quick changes, are they are there any difficult to do on stage, or no? Are they difficult to do on stage? And because of this, has anything ever gone wrong? And as well as this, do you get nervous that you won't make it in time? Even though we kind of talked about this before, it'd be good to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of quick change wise. I think there's been a couple of shows where I've put the Mrs. Doubtfire heels on the wrong feet in Rockin' Now. Either I put them on or they were set wrong on the loop machine. So the end of the last little bit of Rockin' Now, I just kept looking down at my feet, being like, "That looks ridiculous." Um, I think that's it. There was, yeah, costume changes. Oh, touch wood now. Nothing for me personally has been like, "Oh my goodness, we have to stop." I remember the apron that I have to put on just before Let Go when I'm talking to Miranda. That used to be really difficult to get into. Um, but yeah, costume. No, I've never missed anything. I don't think Gabe has either. But I think now because Gabe's obviously done it hundreds of times. I'm annoyed because I was keeping count and now I've lost count of how many
Oh,
times I've done it. But I think I've done it probably around like 50 times. So you'd hope in those 50 times it has got slicker, and it definitely does feel slick. And again,
mm,
the people who work in, we call them Team Effie, and we've had incredible people from when we opened, and people have come back, left, gone on holiday. And there's always people coming in because it's such a hard track to dress Mrs. Doubtfire. Um, you know, I've got one, two, I think it's about five people around me. One person on my front, one person on my back. Got the person looking after the wig and the mask. Every so often you'll get a blast of air with your mic, and you just have to. I remember at the beginning it was incredibly overwhelming to have that many people. Like, because you've probably just done like a manic dance routine or like a lovely scene or something, and all of a sudden you've got all these hands all over you, and you know it was quite overwhelming to start with, but now it's such a rhythm that you just have to. But basically, if you're playing Daniel or Mrs. Doubtfire, you cannot switch off, because if you switch off for a second, you're you're guaranteed to make a mistake. And as much as live theatre is live theatre and mistakes happen, if you do miss a quick change, or you know you have put your wrong foot in the wrong shoe and that takes up 2 seconds, there's probably a whole group of people on stage waiting for you to come on stage. So the quick changes do have to be really, really slick, on stage and off. And luckily, we have an incredible team to make that happen. And, right back from the beginning, the people who, created that plot and, how to make it work, it's genius. It's genius.
yeah, it's like a massive like team effort really, and like if yeah, as you said about switching off, it must be so demanding throughout the entire show. But with the reactions you get at the end, it must be so overwhelming in a way that you've like not done your job, if that makes sense. But like really express what you're trying to show, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's lovely. Like as soon as I finish the Kovac scene, makes me want to do my angry dance. Ooh, I think I'll join you. Ooh. That's my biggest. Apart from being off during What the Hell, that's me at the end of the show. And even now, after however many shows I've done, I still turn to whoever's dressing me and I say every single show. I say every single show. I know I say it every single show, but I can't believe we've just done that again. Like every show I get to that point and I'm like, I can't believe we've done it. I can't believe we've just done that again. Because there are moments where I definitely don't feel this as much, like I said earlier. But there were days when I was first starting on and stuff where you would doubt it. You'd be like, this is impossible. This is impossible. But then as soon as I get to that, whoever's dressing me, my amazing team, give me all my water. I take my last big slug of water because all I've got to do is go on for that last little Just Us scene. One more quick change. Well, two more quick changes to come into Doubtfire for the Katie Wrights and then out of Doubtfire for the Bow. But that's when I'm like, we're nearly done. We're nearly done. And I always get to that point. I'm very grateful for everyone who's worked so hard on and off stage. I'm proud of myself for getting through another show. And if it's a 2-show day, you're like, okay, I've got to get to this point again in about 5 hours. I remember Gabe saying to me ages ago, he was like, try not to sleep in between shows in a 2-show day because I love a nap. But no matter how tired I am after one show, if I'm having a really tired day, if I didn't sleep well the night before, if I'm really tired after one show, I know I've got one more, I do everything I can to not go to sleep. I just lie on the sofa, I listen to a podcast, listen to an audiobook, I put something on, I listen to music, but I just tell myself, do not sleep, because you just have to restart your energy all over again. And yeah, so I've got my own little religious, like, what's the word? Things that I do. So whether I'm on for one show or 2 shows, I will always have a hot shot before the first show, and then a can of ginger beer and a lemon and ginger drink, a heck load of water, and then before the second act, I will have a ginger shot. And that is something now that if I don't do, in my brain, I'm like, oh, you didn't buy your hot shots, you didn't buy your ginger shot, the show's going to go terribly. So yeah, that's my little definites for my Daniel Doubtfire show, because I always want my voice to be okay, like not just for vocals, like for the songs, but to like get up there for Doubtfire for so long, and for the first impression scene and for all the voices he does on the phone, it's a lot vocally to keep your throat okay. So I always make sure that it's got lots of ginger and lemon looking after it.
Yeah, great stuff, Rhys. So now we're on to another question. So with regarding the voices, obviously there's a lot of voices in this show, and that's one of the main parts of Daniel's character. Has there ever been a time where you potentially maybe done the wrong voice for a bit that you were meant to do?
Oh, goodness me. Again, I have to really rack my brains. I don't think so. I do sometimes think, God, what if one time I came out and just started speaking as Daniel when I should have been Doubtfire? It could ruin the whole show. I've definitely not done that. I don't think I've ever... No, I haven't. You watch, I'll do it next Sunday, 2 weeks Sunday. Damn Jaden and Miles.
We cursed you there.
No, I don't think I have. I don't think I have, no. No, that was an easy answer.
Yeah.
No, is the answer to that question.
And now, it wouldn't be an interview without fellow cast members asking you questions. And we have 3 questions.
What?
I know, yeah. 3 questions from Adam Lyons, who's a fellow ensemble member.
Joy!
One of which is, like, do you feel that any time in the show there's guaranteed crowd pleasers for you?
I think you can always hear the audience getting ready for the pie, and if the pie does look spectacular, you do get a cheer. Like that is a big moment. Every so often you do get a cheer for the Hoover, because obviously that's such a big iconic moment from the film. Once once she goes for the Hoover, you sometimes get like a woo. Obviously the reveal of Mrs Doubtfire is always an absolute barnstormer. Um, and yeah, just I guess seeing people standing up at the end and just really appreciating whether they've enjoyed the show just as a piece of theatre, or whether it's exceeded their expectation from the film or been as good as the film. That's always a nice feeling for us. But yeah, for crowd pleasing, I think Pie, Hoover, Mrs Doubtfire's first reveal. Oh, and when Christopher says the S word, and you go, "Watch your mouth, young man." Again, you can always hear like an audible,
Yeah.
"What's he going to do?" And there have been a few lovely moments. I know it's happened to Gabe, and it's happened to me a few times, where when Daniel gets revealed as the new nanny at the end, you get like sometimes a nice clap and like, oh, and then the hug when he hugs everyone. Sometimes you get a nice round of applause. I know that Laura Tebbett's sometimes been booed a couple of times for when she gets full custody of the children in the court scene.
Oh
She's
wow.
Oh
sometimes
my
she's
god.
sometimes had a couple of boo. Um, but that's the thing. Like, I think that's what they've done with Miranda so lovely in this version. Like, in the again, it's such a again. I keep saying this for some reason. It's like it's a tightrope with Daniel's part, because he is definitely breaking the law, like definitely shouldn't be doing what he's doing, like breaking so many rules. I watched a video when I was in rehearsals on like how much Daniel would have been like fined, like legally, if he'd have done all the things
Oh
that he'd done
yeah.
in real life. And I think it grossed up to like he'd have had to have paid like $55,000 in legal fees,
Oh wow.
and would have spent something like 25 years in prison. Um,
That would be
and,
intimidating.
like the thing that really made me laugh in that video is the judge in the film and in the show says you've got 3 months to get a new job, get a new house, and get a new home, and show that you can be a good father. All he had to do was wait 3 months, but instead he's like, no, I need to see my kids, so I'm going to dress up as a Scottish old lady. And he got himself into so much hot water. Yeah, that's some interesting facts for you there.
Yeah. I mean, one moment which I thought is an amazing moment during the show is when you get revealed in your sports gear during
Yeah,
Envoy. That
Legendary.
yeah.
yeah, that always gets a very big reaction. Again, I think I was thinking of you as a crowd pleasing moments, as in like from the film, but yeah, that always gets a huge reaction. Whether it's been like maybe a quiet audience, that will always make people laugh raucously, because it is mad. It's a old age pensioner woman dressed. I don't even know what she's dressed in, in sports gear, and then she raps and break dances. It's
What
so
more could
good.
you want, really? It's,
What more could you want? It's so good. It's so good.
I think there's two things I find quite funny actually, because I think I know that video you're talking about, Rhys, because I want to say it's from like the Film Theorist, was it? Like,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah, because I remember I watched that and I sort of watched that and you think because you do look at the story of Mrs. Doubtfire and you kind of think to yourself like this is slightly questionable and everyone goes, oh yeah, but he does it for his kids, and you're sort of like, well, yeah, that's sweet, but you look at it and you're like, in some ways, you're like, this is kind of messed up. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. He's like I said, he's definitely breaking the law. He tries to poison his wife's new partner in the
exactly,
film.
yeah. It's like,
Like gets told that he's allergic to pepper and goes out of his way into the restaurant they're eating in to put pepper in his dinner. Like, is that for his kids? Murder?
exactly. You think to yourself, it's like I think like one of the other funny things I found is like, I'm trying not to go on a tangent here, but like when I've been watching the film on TV or like daytime TV nowadays, I noticed they cut out some of like the swear words. So like the bit where he's like, hey, watch your mouth, young man. They get rid of the swear, and you're thinking, well, no one's going to know what it is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the dinner scene with Stuart as well. Obviously, Robin Williams did a lot of quite adult improvisation. As all that's been cut out for like the UK release. I noticed, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
there we
quite
go.
interesting.
See, more interesting facts.
I think okay. So like the last thing before I ask the next question is speaking of like the Doubtfire reveal. I remember it was funny. I think it was the second time I'd seen you, but I think it might have been the second time for Jane as well. But I remember like that whole day, Jane was saying to me, "Oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it in time." And then and then it was the massive thing. And then you came up to me in the interval when you said, "I walked in as soon as Rhys comes in the door as Doubtfire," and I sort of said, "What a moment to walk in!" Like you're walking in, and as you said, Jane, you walked into the theatre as Doubtfire walks into the house for the first time.
Did you announce your name and say "dear" at the end as you walked through the door?
No,
It's Jaden, dear.
but I got a lot of stares.
Well, at least you made it. At least you made it.
Right. So the next question we have is one that we would say think very carefully about, because otherwise you might have some explanations to some of your cast members. But who would you say is the person in the cast that brings you the most joy?
Is this from Adam again?
Yeah, it is from Adam.
What a mean question. I mean, I can see the intention of it. Who brings me the most joy? Everyone brings me joy. The whole cast is a joy. The whole crew is a joy. Everyone is a joy. Yeah, everyone every day will always make somebody else smile or give someone a nice hug. And there's some days where you don't, with what I do, I mainly see the boys because we all share the dressing room. So if I'm not on, I'll probably only really see the boys. Sometimes I'll go up and see Kelly and I'll hang out with her and Carla, and maybe we'll pop in and see Marcus and Cameron, and Sam will pop in. But yeah, and then if I am on, I don't really have any time to see anyone anyway because I'm either on stage or off stage doing a quick change. But everyone's a joy. Adam Lyons, that was a very sneaky question. But I guess I'll say, for asking the question, Adam Lyons.
I think he'll be very happy with that.
He'll be happy with that one.
But the final question from Adam is kind of a better one, a bit uplifting one, and is how do you all like provide a gala night after night?
He loves a gala. We all love a gala, but Adam loves a gala. Every night is gala night for Adam Lyons, and thus every night is a gala night for all of us. I mean, we sometimes listen to lots of good music in the dressing room. We keep each other, talking about all of our daily news and, everything that's happened to us in the day. And we're always there for each other when things are good and when things are bad. We're a very supportive group of people, not just in that room, but across the whole building. Music. For me personally, when I'm on as Doubtfire, I always surprise who's coming in to do the sound and do my mic, and whoever's coming in to dress me. I always been playing a different playlist every day, because once we finish warm up at about 6:20 or 2:20, and if we don't have to run anything after warm up, you've got basically an hour before the show starts. So I always keep my energy up by listening to music. So yesterday I decided on Britney Spears. Last week I was listening to lots of Motown. I've had Steps, very, very cheesy pop for me. We've had some AC/DC. And then when I'm not on, I always do quizzes for the boys. So when they come in at the interval, if they specifically want a quiz, I will, in the first half, make a whole quiz. I'll ask them if they want a special bonus round, and we'll have a little bonus round at the end. And we do a little quiz in the interval. That always gives gala. I think Adam won one of the quizzes the other day, or at least he got close to winning. And I've got reams and reams of quizzes now, which I will be busting out at any party. and I will think of all of our lovely quiz nights in the dressing room.
I mean, from what I've
Amazing.
seen on Instagram, you have a lot of Mario nights. Is it Mario? Is it Mario Kart?
Mario Kart is a new addition. So I was very lucky to help Kelly with her concert that she did at Wonderville. Oh, 2 weeks ago tonight. Yes, 2 weeks ago tonight. I helped her with that, and then that next week, I brought in my Switch, and me and Kelly started. Then Corey came in. Then Carla got involved. Then Sam got involved, and then we had a little Mario Kart crew. And then Kelly's been away all of last week on holiday, enjoying herself, having a lovely, well-deserved time. And I didn't go and play Mario Kart once. So probably when she's back tomorrow, maybe we'll go back to our little Mario Kart crew. But yeah, that's only new. That's only a new thing. But I think that's going to be our last little push to the end of the contract, to have little Mario Kart afternoons in between two shows.
Yeah, great stuff. That like, and I remember one time I think I was just scrolling through Instagram and I just see Carla's like story, and then just like I remember just like the caption on it, like saying like what I've come back to like after the first act, and I just remember seeing it and just seeing like everyone in that room just laughing at how everyone who's not on stage just in the interval they're just like playing away.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's very competitive. We didn't realise how competitive we all were until we all started playing Mario Kart. Carla was terrible to begin with, and then the other day when we were playing before Kelly went on holiday, she was first for a while, and then she got terrible again. But yes, I'm woefully inconsistent at Mario Kart. I can either come first or 12th. There's never a middle ground.
Right, so unfortunately, this brings us on to the final question. I mean, I'm sure me and Jen would like to talk for a lot longer, but I think unfortunately there's a time limit on this call as well. But moving on to the final question, what is your most memorable performance of the show to date? Would you say?
I think that has to be my first. I mean, my first ever show was memorable because I wasn't expecting to go on. But I think for me, the most memorable one is my first confirmed show, which was the 28th of August, because that is when all my family were there, all my friends, the Broadway producer was there, Jamie Wilson, the producer, was there, and that was just a very, very special night. And then I found out a week later that my dad had had a heart attack that morning, but still came to see the show in the evening.
Oh wow.
Which, is a testament to my incredible family that, 8 o'clock in the morning in Swansea, my dad's had a heart attack and he's like, should I go to hospital or should I go and support my son? I'll go and support my son. And he went into hospital the next day and didn't tell me until I finished on the Saturday. And my mum called me on the Sunday morning and said, your dad had a heart attack on Monday. And I was like, but you were with me all day Monday. He was like, yeah, we didn't want to tell you. So that, as soon as I knew that made that night even more special, because of, his dedication to coming to see me. With my mum, my grandma was like 87, came all the way from Wales, like family members, all my closest friends. And just sort of speaking to them afterwards and having really lovely feedback from the producers and stuff like that. Even though I'd been on that week as a surprise before, that was just me being like, okay, this is when like all like my big people are coming. So that for me was, I'll never ever forget that night, ever.
Yeah. But no, yeah. Thank you once again, like very much for doing this interview, and yeah, those answers to questions were absolutely superb. So well done.
Oh, well, they were great questions. Thank you to you and Adam Lyons and whoever else sent in a question.
So yeah, down below will be the link to obviously the Mrs Doubtfire socials, and yeah, I don't know what way it'll be yet. You could point all four.
Wherever it'll be somewhere.
Yeah, and also to Rhys's Instagram below, so make sure you go and give it a follow. And yeah, that's all. We'll hopefully see you at some point in the future, Rhys.
I'm sure we'll be back.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, boys. Thank you for a lovely interview.
That's
No
all.
worries.
Have an amazing evening.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice Monday night, boys.
You too. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Cheers.